Welcome. And today's topic is forgiveness for yourself and others. Um, and, we're talking about something today that we all need. We all need a lot of generally in our lives. And most of us were not taught how to actually do this and how to do it well. Um, and so our task today isn't really a talk about morality, which it can get into when you're talking about forgiveness. It's really kind of practical about one of the more liberating things that you can do, um, and that you need to do on a pretty frequent basis, probably. Um, Most people think about forgiveness in a way that I think is not very helpful, but it's understandable that we think forgiveness is something you do for someone else, right? That's the way we think about it. I forgive you, right? Transactional almost. And because it feels a little transactional, oftentimes we feel like there needs to be an apology first, right? Um, but it feels weird in a way, and it's hard forgiving people because we feel like we're giving them a gift, right? The gift of forgiveness, uh, but they hurt us. Why would I give someone who hurt me a gift? That feels weird, right? Um, and and it feels particularly weird and uncomfortable and wrong even for a lot of people to forgive somebody when the hurt was real, like it was something really important, right? And they haven't changed or apologized or even acknowledged maybe what they did, right? So how can I give them an apology? That just feels wrong, right? Right? Why would you do that? Makes no sense. But forgiveness has almost nothing to do with the other person. It's kind of related to in the Four Agreements, which some of you know, my favorite book. Um, don't take anything personally. The way other people treat us is mostly about them, not about us, right? So don't take it personally. This is related because, yeah, if the way they treat us is mostly about them, right? Their traumas, their mood, their lack of sleep, their problems in a relationship or at work, whatever it is that's affecting them that caused them to do something to us or say something to us. Similarly, forgiveness is really mostly about us. It's a gift to us, right? Particularly if you're forgiving yourself. But even if you're forgiving somebody else, it's a gift to yourself, right? And that's the paradigm shift that we're going to focus on today, because that's what unlocks this and will relieve you of a lot of unnecessary suffering in your life over the years. Um, it's really about putting down a weight that you've been carrying, right? The weight of resentment, anger, bitterness, right? That's been costing you a lot, probably over time, right? I mean, it costs you energy, health, peace, presence, right? Being present in the present moment. Because when we're carrying resentment or anger about something that was done to us in the past, uh, we're living in the past. We're not living in the present. We keep time traveling to the past, reliving it over and over again. Forgiveness allows us to stop doing that and to be present in this moment, right? And that's what we want. We want to, why are we all here in Insight Timer? Like part of it is we want to be mindful. We want to be living in the present, not time traveling to the past or the future, right? So, you know, the reality is that when we forgive someone, they may not even ever know that we forgave them, right? Forgiveness doesn't require you to say to someone else, I forgive you. It's in your heart, it's in your head, right? They may never know, right? Them knowing isn't the point. The point is that you've made your peace with it you have forgiven them and given yourself permission to move on. That's what it's about, right? You're going to stop letting that person and whatever happened determine how you live now, right? You're not going to let the past control your present or keep you from your present by having you time travel repeatedly to revisit the pain, right? The insult, the disappointment, the loss, right? That's what we're talking about. That's a big paradigm shift. Big paradigm shift, right? Sandy says, I forgive my whole lineage. Yeah. And part of it, we're going to get into it. Like sometimes it's about forgiving us. Sometimes it's about forgiving life or the universe or whatever. I mean, they're different, you know, people or things that we need to forgive sometimes. So again, like the first thing I think that really helped me get to a better place with this was understanding that unforgiveness, right, carrying the resentment or the grudge or whatever, is a form of time travel, right? That every time we're triggered or it comes up or we think about it, we perseverate, right, ruminate, we're time traveling to the past, right? And it's not a good kind of time travel if there is a good kind of time travel, right? This one's just like, let me go back to this pain and suffering, resentment, the grudge, right? Let me revisit that. We replay the event, we re-argue our case, right? We rehearse what we should have said, right? And every time we do that, we're emotionally and mentally living in the past. And we want to be in the present. It's the only thing that's real, right? Our memory of what happened isn't even real. It's not exactly what happened, right? Unless you're one of the, like, I don't know what it is, 800 people in the world who remember everything in their life, every moment exactly as it happened, like a movie. Unless you're one of them, your memory of what happened isn't accurate. It's distorted in some way, shape, or form. It's incomplete, right? So we're choosing to live in that some of the time instead of being present in the present moment, which is what's real and where we have some control, right? So, we don't want to be doing that time traveling, right? We want to be where our actual life is right now. And this will allow us to live with greater integrity, right? To be fully present, making good decisions about how we want to live our lives now, right? As a whole undivided person, not having part of us living in the past and part of us living in the present and probably part of us living in the future. We want to all be here now, fully present to live life the way we want to, right? And you just can't do that if you're spending part of your energy living in the past, right? It's stealing your present from you. Why do you want to keep doing that? Right? That's the choice. Why do you want to keep doing that? Right? Sandy asks, does resentment keep us in our ego? Yeah, I mean, it's this like distorted version of our ego, right? And a lot of times for some of us, it gets catastrophized and we exaggerate it into this victimhood mindset, right? But we don't do that. We want to be fully present and get back to the ego part, like ideally fully aware of how we are a part of everything and everyone else, right? How we're connected to each other and the universe and nature and all that. Well, that presence requires us to not be spending time feeding our ego through the resentment or the grudge, right? And, I think some of the resistance on forgiveness comes from, I think, and maybe some of this is semantics, right? But work with me here. That some of us are thinking that forgiveness is something that it's not, right? It's kind of like, when I've talked before about validation, when you're having a conversation with somebody and you're trying to help them feel understood and validated. And for some people that feels bad. It's like, well, validation is, aren't I agreeing with them? No, you're not agreeing with them. Validation is about acknowledging, yeah, I can see how someone might feel that way, right? Doesn't mean I agree with you feeling that way, that I'm happy, but I understand how you got there, right? Um, Similarly, forgiveness is not about saying it's okay, right? When you forgive someone, it's not saying it was okay that you did that thing to me or said that thing to me. It's not what forgiveness is, right? It's also not reconciliation. You can forgive somebody and never talk to them again. I have somebody from like 30 years ago that I have harbored pain and I don't know whether it's resentment uh, or I don't know what. Maybe it's resentment, but it doesn't feel quite like that. But it's definitely something where I have struggled to forgive this person. I've worked on it though, and I've come a long way, and I'm much better. I think I have, to a large extent, forgiven them. They're completely unaware of any of this, which is a good lesson to us. Not only is forgiveness not reconciliation, and they may never even know if you forgave them, but they're unaware, probably, of the grudge or resentment at all. You're the one suffering with it, not them, right? So, again, you're not saying it's okay. It's not reconciliation. You can reconcile, but you don't have to. It's not forgetting, right? And it's certainly not suppressing. So it's not pretending that it didn't happen or it wasn't as bad as it felt. No, got to acknowledge that, right? And grieve for it if you have to, right? Whatever was lost. It's certainly not weakness. And that's what some people feel like, oh, if I forgive that person, I'm being weak. No, no, it takes a lot of strength and courage to forgive somebody. Quite the opposite, right? Right? It takes a lot more strength to forgive somebody than it does to hold a grudge, right? When you think about it. So it's not weak. And it's also often not done in a single moment or decision point. It's something you have to practice, you have to repeat over and over again sometimes. Like with the person from 30 years ago for me, that's something I have to, like, every once in a blue moon now. I mean, it used to be more frequent, but now it's like, man, like something triggers a memory about them or that time in my life. And it's like, huh. But it's just this little minuscule thing now when it comes up, right? Um, and it's is a big one. It's not conditional on an apology, because waiting for an apology gives that person control over your healing and ability to move on. So you do not want to make it contingent on that. And a lot of us do. Most of us do. And that's a mistake. You're giving them more power. You're saying, hey, I've been suffering because of what you did or said to me. And I'm not going to forgive you until you give me an apology. Well, maybe they're going to use that against you and be like, oh, I can cause them more anguish. Okay, I'll withhold my apology. Right now, you're in this battle, but you gave them all the ammunition. Right, so that doesn't make sense. Right. Um, Sandy says, I write letters and then burn them. I do this with clients all the time. All the time. It is a really healthy, helpful practice, right? To write letters you won't send. You don't have to burn. You can burn them if you want, or you can shred them or whatever, but you don't send them. But write the letter, right? Say what you got to say and forgive them, right? You don't have to give it to them, right? It's liberating. It's liberating. Um, Here's what forgiveness actually is. It's releasing your grip on the story that you've been telling yourself about what happened and letting it be, or making it be, a defining characteristic or fact of your present day, right? We're saying, I'm going to let go of that story that I've been telling myself and maybe other people about this harm that was done to me. I'm going to let it go. It's no longer going to be something I keep time traveling to the past to revisit or bringing into my present to define me. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm moving on, letting it go. I'm not going to let the past determine my access to peace now, right? I'm not going to let my past and what happened to me in the past control my access to peace now in my life. Not going to do that anymore. That's what forgiveness is. It means freeing the energy that has been locked in resentment and redirecting it towards now and my actual life, right? I'm redirecting all that energy that I've used on the grudge and the resentment, liberating it and directing it right now. What do I want to do with that now? To create a better life, more love, more joy, more peace, right? And I may have to make that decision over and over until it sticks, right? But I'm going to do that so that that event or that person or whatever doesn't continue to cost me in my present, right? It's a way of coming back to yourself, your integrity, your wholeness, not allowing part of you to be pulled away constantly to this grudge, right? That's what it is. Tanya says, I'm planning to write a letter and considering actually sending it, provided their address is still valid. What do you think about that? This person last contacted me via letter. It took me years to forgive them. I'm still working on it. So, Tanya, it's entirely up to you. Like, if you think it would be helpful to you, positive, healing, to send it, if you envision that could lead to a healing in the relationship and that really matters to you and you think that's possible, sure. But if it's about, I have things to say, it might lead to more conflict with that person. I don't see a point in that. I don't need them to acknowledge it. I've moved on from that relationship, or they're important in my life and I don't think they can handle that conversation right now for whatever reason, then you don't send it. If they're no longer with us, right? I've had people, and I myself have sent letters to, relatives or friends who've passed, right? But entirely up to you. I guess the question there is, and as Sandy says, if they wrote it, their version of the story would be quite different. I imagine it would be different, period. How different, who knows? But it would be different. It's going to be different. Two people are going to have different memories of the same event, no matter what their perspective or agenda or whatever, right? And Tanya, you say you never want to see them again. Then why do you care about whether they know how their actions affected you or not? You're giving them more power. Like, what? Release yourself from that, right? Do you want to engage them? What you're saying is, I want to engage them. Do you really want to engage them? What if they write back? Are you now perpetuating this? Maybe what you really need is to do your healing inside. Right? If you're never going to have contact with them again, them knowing or not knowing isn't going to affect you. So why send it? Right? So you're only inviting a response if you send them the letter. You're saying, please write back. Please counter me. Please you know, tell me I'm wrong or agree with me, but please, I need your response. You don't need their response, so don't send it. My advice, right? Glad that helps. Um, there's the other part of this, and sometimes I find that this is helpful with people who are still at this point, like, Steve, I don't want to forgive them. It's the neuroscience of what's going on here. And there's been research about this. There was even a forgiveness project at Stanford University, right? And researchers there did work on kind of chronic unforgiveness and how it can keep creating almost like a kind of a chronic stress state, right? Where holding resentment or a grudge can kind of keep putting your nervous system in a low grade activation. And we've talked about this, survival, fight or flight mechanism and your nervous system over and over again in my sessions. And we know what happens, right, when we get triggered this way, right? Cortisol levels go up, blood pressure goes up, your immune function gets compromised a bit, your sleep gets disrupted, right? And and that's not good, right? That's not good. So we want to protect our health. So forgiveness isn't just virtuous in a way, which is the way we think about it often, but it releases the body from a stress response that it's been clinging to. And we know that, you know, this is real, like this neuroscience is real. Like, your amygdala can't tell the difference between a physical threat and a perceived real or imagined or past emotional or social threat, right? So it's treated every time you bring back this old grudge or resentment or harm or whatever that was done to you, your brain is experiencing it again as a current threat, triggering all these mechanisms that are bad for your health. So you're not punishing them by not forgiving them. You're punishing yourself physically. You're physically punishing yourself. So stop doing that. We all agree on that. But if only for that, you should stop doing it and forgive them. Right? So there are kind of three different directions forgiveness can go in, right? One is kind of we're talking a lot about forgiving others, right? It's the most obvious. Somebody betrayed you or let you down or hurt you in some way, shape, or form. And the hurt was real. We're not talking about minimizing it or repressing it or denying it at all. You've got to acknowledge what happened and what it cost you, right? But then, having done that, make a choice to release your grip on it and forgive as a gift to yourself so you can move on, right? If we're people who live with integrity, and everybody knows that, integrity is in the name of my company, right? Integrity and joy. So if we want to have joy in our lives, we've got to have integrity. And that means acknowledging what's happened to you for sure, but also like making sure that you're not exaggerating or catastrophizing, but also understanding that carrying the grudge or resentment is really hurting yourself. That allows you to then forgive as a means of getting your integrity back, like making yourself whole again in this sense, right? And you really need to ask yourself, how much more of my life and my attention am I willing to give this person and this event that happened in the past? It's a good question. Huh? So that's first, others, forgiving others. Next direction, forgiving yourself, right? This can be harder. And a lot of us don't do this or don't do it well. We beat ourselves up a lot. Our inner critic, we let run wild. It's the things we didn't say, the things we did say, the things we did, the things we didn't do, right? There's a lot. Mistakes, failures, moments where we didn't allow ourselves or didn't, you know, feel empowered or strong enough to be who we wanted to be, where we violated our core values, lacked integrity, maybe. And again, just like with other people, self forgiveness is not self exoneration. You're not saying it's okay that I did what I did. It's about acknowledging what happened, understanding why, hopefully, so that you make better mistakes tomorrow, as my best friend says, that you make amends or make repair when possible, right? That's part of having integrity. And also choosing to stop prosecuting yourself over and over indefinitely for this, right? Understand it, acknowledge it, try to make better mistakes tomorrow, make amends, right? Make repairs, and then forgive yourself and allow yourself to move on, right? Um, because otherwise, your inner critic will beat you up forever over it, right? I've had those things in my past. And you've got to have some integrity too in terms of understanding, and this is where the four agreements gets into this with being impeccable with your word. Don't do harm with your word. Don't keep beating yourself up over this. Acknowledge that you're human and you make mistakes, right? Just like other people make mistakes, right? And you know you can, I think, at that point come to an understanding that it's dishonest in a way or lacks integrity to keep punishing yourself for a mistake you made once you've acknowledged it and tried to make amends and learn from it. Um, and I know this is hard, right? But would you treat someone else the way you treat yourself when you make a mistake? Come on. I hope not, right? Certainly not anybody you care about. So it's really important, right? And it allows you again to live more present in this moment, in the now. And then the third direction is kind of forgiving life or the universe or God or whatever. Like a lot of times we don't even talk about this, but like, you know, we grieve for what didn't happen in our lives, the life we didn't, end up having, the relationship that didn't work out, um, the version of ourselves that we thought we'd be by this point in our lives. And sometimes that leads to bitterness and resentment towards life, the universe, God, whatever it is. Um, it's like a resentment towards circumstances, fate, maybe, um, that things haven't turned out the way we hoped they would, the way we planned they would. And it's kind of the same as with a person, yourself or somebody else. Acknowledge it, learn from it, let it go. Come back to the present. This is where you're at. What are you going to do with this moving forward? So that 10 years from now, you don't have a resentment about how you spent these 10 years. Right? Um, Sandy says, this is timely because I'm currently discussing a book with a couple of friends called You Can Heal Your Life, and forgiveness is a big part of it. That's great. Yeah, it should be. Right? You're looking to heal, forgiveness is going to be a big part of healing, right? Of yourself, other people, life in general. Right? That's great. Um, so, what does this look like in practice when we're forgiving? First part of it is to name it. Like, be specific about what it is that you need to forgive. What actually happened? What specifically are you holding on to? What's the resentment? What's the pain, the hurt, the person, what happened, the wound that it created? What was that? And that's important because, like, trying to move on from or forgive a vague grudge or resentment It doesn't really work very hard. It's harder to release it. But if you're specific about it, like, oh, this thing makes it easier. It also helps ground you in your integrity. Like, let me be specific and not exaggerate what actually happened. Because a lot of times it's harder to forgive and move on because we've blown it out of proportion. And let's try and be precise. And the next part is to allow yourself to you feel it one more time. Just, if you got to grieve some more, right? But, it's not about suppressing the pain. Say, like, yeah, that hurt. Acknowledge it. And then you can release it. Now, how do we get ourselves to the point where we feel ready to forgive? I think curiosity, which is a superpower, particularly in the case of conflict and things that we need to forgive other people and ourselves for. Curiosity is unbelievably powerful. Maybe the most powerful in terms of forgiveness. Because instead of just staying focused on their guilt or your guilt for whatever needs to be forgiven, you can get curious about why would they do that? Why did they do that? Why did I do that? All right. How and why did that happen in that way? Not to excuse it, not to agree with it, right? But to understand it. And maybe with the other person to empathize and have compassion that they're a human being too and they make mistakes and they're weak at times, just like you are. And they say and do things that they regret later, just like you do. And I think about it like when somebody does something or says something really mean, where you see road rage or whatever, like my initial reaction most of the time is, wow, they must be really broken. There must be something really broken inside of them. And that causes me to have tremendous empathy and compassion for them. And I forgive them for what they just did or said. Because they must be full of such pain and hurt, anger, fear, some combination of those. How could I not have compassion for them? Like, if my core values are empathy and compassion and love, right? Those are among my core values. If they're yours, are they only your values when it's easy and convenient? Or are they your values all the time? Again, it doesn't mean that you have to let that person back into your life. But it means maybe you can forgive them because they're a human being and they screwed up massively or a little bit, whatever it is. Right? Again, it's back to the four agreements and not taking anything personally. The way other people treat us is about them more than it is about us. So don't make it more about you. You don't have to. It was really about them mostly. That's why they did the thing they did, because it was about them, their past traumas, their problems, relationships, health, whatever that was going on at the time, their wounds, their fears, the conditioning that they received growing up or throughout adulthood. Right? It's really not about us. It's about their unresolved stuff. And, you know, we often make assumptions. Another one of the four agreements, don't make assumptions. We make assumptions about why they did or said something to us. Be curious about it, try to empathize, but don't make assumptions. Oh, they did it because they're a bad person. They did it because they were trying to hurt me. You have no idea. Don't. Even if they said they were trying to hurt you, they might have been really just trying to cause themselves pain. I remember I did something when I was a teenager to the person who was at the time my best friend. I, and I told him I was pissed off. I was trying to hurt him because he had done something that hurt me. I don't think he was even conscious of the thing that he had done to hurt me. I was really, I think, feeling trapped in that friendship and needing to extricate myself from it. I didn't know how. So I did it by hurting him so that he would not want to hang out with me. Right. So don't make assumptions. Right. We tend to fill in the gaps in our knowledge with worst case scenarios and all these different assumptions that often aren't right. And and we act as if our interpretation is fact, and it's not. And again, this isn't about agreeing with them. It's like validation again. It, it's understanding, but it's not agreeing. It's not approving of their behavior. And having empathy for them doesn't change the way it felt to you. It doesn't mean it you didn't feel what you felt, but it means that you see a more complete human picture of an interaction between two flawed people who make mistakes or your own actions, right? Compassion for yourself. And that empathy and compassion is what creates the space for that forgiveness to happen. You can't forgive what you demonize. Curiosity humanizes the other person or yourself if it's about you. And what's human can be forgiven. Right? And then finally, if we're at that place where we're ready, we can choose to forgive. You may not feel like forgiving them, but you choose it anyway because it's for you. You choose to be liberated from this past event, this past wrong. And you might have to practice it over and over again, but that's what you do because you're choosing to liberate yourself from the grudge, the resentment, or for yourself, the guilt or shame or whatever. Move on. That's your choice. And every time you choose it, you get to reclaim a little bit more of your present and it becomes easier. Right? Um, so, what is it for you? Like, if you close your eyes for a minute, who do you need to forgive? Someone else, yourself, life, fate. How can you be curious, empathetic, compassionate to allow yourself to forgive? How can you choose to liberate yourself from more suffering, more time travel? What will that look like this week? What's one small thing you can do to liberate yourself? Thank you, Sandy. Yeah. Empathy and compassion create the space to forgive. Right? If you have any questions, pushback, epiphanies you've had, if you want to put it out there, that what you're going to do this week, one small step you can take towards forgiving someone or something to liberate yourself from the past, pop it in the chat, right? Someone else might feel inspired or reassured or validated, right, by what you put, right? There's some aspect of this you want me to drill down deeper on, put it in the chat. While people are doing that, just a reminder that these live sessions are free. They're supported with donations from people like you. So if you feel inspired to make a donation, thanks. And I know some of you have done that in the past, and I really appreciate it. Love that we get to keep doing this, right? So it says, I cannot have empathy toward the neighbor who let their dog bark at 1 a.m. every day. Yeah, I guess it could be hard, right? But why would someone do that? Right? I could see someone who feels like they have no control over their dog. They may be lying in bed frustrated as well. And carrying the resentment, and in this case, it's something that keeps traumatizing you, right? Because it's not just time traveling to the past. It's like compounded every day. Can be particularly hard. These ones are hard. What, if anything, can you do about it? The conversation with the neighbor, conversation with other neighbors, and seeing if there's something as a neighborhood you can do, right? To talk to the neighbor, or animal control, right? So it's an ongoing problem. But I know people who've had loud barking dogs and kids on planes who are screaming and all that. I feel tremendous empathy for them because I think they know exactly what's happening to the people around them. And they may respond to other people's complaints with anger, but that's just, anger is like fear and helplessness or hopelessness often. So that person may be just afraid that it's going to keep happening and there's nothing they can do about it other than give up the dog, and they may not want to give up the dog. So, I can imagine having empathy for them. It doesn't mean you're not going to be frustrated by the situation, and then you can figure out what, if anything, you can do about the situation. Right? That's a hard one. Again, other people want to pop a situation into the chat. We can talk about it. I hope you're following me here on Inside Timer. You can reach out if you'd like to have a conversation, go deeper into this. If there's a particular situation or person you feel like maybe you could use some help talking it through, reach out to me and we can have a conversation and explore how I might be of help to you. You can also check out my mini course that people seem to like on living with integrity. And you can have interaction with me there as well. So that's another great idea. And then I have a lot of meditations here and more to come. And you can check those out, rate and review them, and let me know what kinds of meditations you want me to do more of. And then I have a little group here as well that you can reach through my profile, right? If you're following me on Living with Integrity and Joy. And I share my Substack there, and I'm going to be sharing my newsletter there, and meditations and other things. So I hope you'll join that as well. And I do these live sessions on Wednesdays at noon Eastern generally. And next week is on the relationship between rest and growth. And a lot of us, I wrote about this in my newsletter this week, that, a lot of us treat rest as if it's a paycheck. We have to earn it. It's not a paycheck. It's not a paycheck. And it's important. It's vital. And it's an essential part of growth in a lot of ways. So we'll be talking about that next week. Sandy, you're welcome. Tanya says, I really value your insightfulness. Is that a word? I don't know, but it should be. So we're going to make it a word. But thank you. I appreciate that, Tanya. Again, anybody else, if anybody has any final thoughts, if this was helpful or not, just pop it in the chat. Thumbs up or sideways or down. Joanne says, maybe I'll start with forgiving myself for wasting too much of my life resenting my family, who are harder to forgive. That's a great start. It's a great start. That may be the path towards eventually forgiving them. Because if they're, hard to forgive, boy, there's some damage inside of them, right? Gotta be. And we wish it didn't get directed at us, but, what do they say? You only hurt the ones you love. That's not true, but there's some truth in it, right? So I think that's a great way to start, Joanne. Great way to start. Victoria says, thank you. I'll write a letter to my late husband. I'm sorry for your loss. And that's an important letter to write, probably. Right? And Joanne says generational emotional abuse, often the case, right? So how can you not have empathy and forgive people who are the victims themselves of generational emotional abuse? Doesn't mean you're going to let them into your life or have no boundaries with them, whatever. No, you're going to need boundaries. Maybe some of them you won't even have in your life. But wow, the healing that you could have, Joanne, by fully integrating that empathy and allowing yourself to forgive them, that could be liberating to you. Truly life changing, potentially. Right? Again, if you want to talk about moving forward from that, what it might look like, let me know. And sometimes, look, sometimes it that kind of experience created our own trauma inside of us, right? Trauma, I think a helpful way of thinking about it isn't what happened to us, it's what it did to our brains, right? The trauma response in our brains. Therapy, EMDR, those are things worth exploring with a mental health professional as well to kind of rewire, reprogram the way that trauma effect happened in our brain. Worth reaching out to someone, right? But good luck with that, Joanne. Let me know if you want to talk. Um, Anyways, thank you all. I really appreciate it. I hope this is helpful. Um, Again, reach out to me here if you'd like to continue the conversation. Um, and I hope I'll see you here again next week, if not sooner. And in the meantime, one small way this week you can offer some forgiveness to yourself, somebody else, life, the universe, fate, whatever it is, will be a gift to yourself. Forgiveness is a gift to yourself. Remember that. And Tanya, yeah, it's a beautiful day here in Hull. It really is. At some point, I'll get out and take a nice walk on the beach. Yesterday was gorgeous. I went nearby for some live music and dinner with my cousins. I just had to remind myself, like, the workday can end, and you can go out and enjoy. You know, for me right now, beautiful summer. You know that if it quite makes up for the trauma of the winter, but it's getting close. Anyways, thank you all. Be love, be loving energy, right? That's why we're here. Be loving energy. Sending you all much love and gratitude. Thank you. Have a great day.